Why do smart people still die in stupid ways? Not because they lack brains, but because they have too much confidence. If death had a business card, it would carry a very simple name: ego. It doesn't yell, it doesn't threaten, it doesn't force anything. Ego just stands there with its arms crossed, smiling calmly, and says, "Relax, you know what you're doing." Our character today is a very typical middle-aged American man. He owns a house, has a garage, and keeps a toolbox that looks extremely professional but realistically only gets used about 3 times a year. Most importantly, he has a legendary catchphrase his family has heard so many times they've developed immunity to it. "I've done this 100 times." The job itself is tiny, so small it's not even worth calling a professional. Just fixing a small thing around the house, the kind of task that's already finished in his head before he even starts. 5 minutes, maybe 10. No need to read instructions, no need to fully shut off the power. Why be careful when you clearly know everything? There is a warning, very clear, very big, very red, and extremely hard to miss. He sees it, understands it, and then decides to ignore it. That moment lasts less than a second, a tiny, lightning-fast decision, the kind you usually make right before saying, it'll be fine. And to be fair, no one forced him. No enemy, no conspiracy, no freak accident. Just ego holding the steering wheel, while common sense sits in the back seat, not wearing a seatbelt. Story 2. Yeah, I know. He's not stupid. In fact, he's pretty proud of himself for being the type who learns. The night before, he watched exactly 3 YouTube videos, about 10 minutes each, and by the second one he was already nodding along because in his mind he'd got the principle. The third video was just to confirm that the first 2 weren't talking nonsense. At that point, in his head, he had officially graduated into someone who knew what he was doing. Call a professional? Absolutely not. Waste of money, waste of time, and worst of all, you get that look. The "you can't do this yourself" look. Ego would never allow that. He told himself if those guys could do it, he could do it too. Probably even more carefully. The accident happens at the exact thing he was 100% sure couldn't happen. Right at the part the video mentioned very quickly, like, "This is rare, it almost never happens." And it's true. It almost never happens. Right up until it happens to him. Story 3. Google is not an expert. He's the kind of person who deeply respects science, as long as that science appears on Google and doesn't take longer than one phone screen to read. When the doctor starts explaining, he nods politely while already planning to double-check it later tonight. When the engineer talks about risks, he only really catches one word: rare. Google, on the other hand, is different. Google doesn't judge. Google always has an answer that perfectly matches what he wants to hear. He reads fast, cherry-picks like a pro, and skips every paragraph that starts with "don't," "not recommended," or "maybe fatal." Instead, he treasures one golden sentence. In some cases, it's fine. Every step he completes without anything going wrong boosts his confidence another level. See, the doctor worries too much. The engineer is overdramatic. I'm still fine. At this point, ego has fully taken the driver's seat, and common sense is reduced to one job only: justifying every dumb decision. Death doesn't rush. It patiently waits until Google stops being useful, then shows up to finish the conclusion. Story 4. DIY and the illusion of control. The project sounds very smart on paper, like why hire a professional when I have hands, a brain, and a free weekend? He calls it DIY, doing it himself for fun, saving money, and getting that sweet feeling of being in control of his life. He watches a few videos, nods aggressively, and concludes that the people who got hurt were just careless. Him? Different story. He has absolute faith in the magic phrase, "As long as you're careful, it's fine." And careful here means wearing gloves, looking left and right and whispering, "This should be fine," before every critical step. Things you can't see, pressure, torque, electric charge, chain reactions, don't make the worry list because, well, they're quiet. Everything goes perfectly until the exact moment physics decides to join the conversation. The thing he's most proud of, the thing he bragged to his friends about, like, "Yeah, I built that myself," becomes the reason the story ends. No one pushed him. No one forced him. Ego just stands behind him, gives a gentle pat on the shoulder, and says, "See, you were in control." Story 5. I'm fine. He's the type who believes being physically fit is basically a liability waiver from the universe. He can climb stairs without getting winded, carry heavy stuff with one hand, and whenever someone mentions safety, he just laughs and drops the classic line, "I'm fine." In his head, muscles work like armor. If you have them, you don't need to think any further. He looks down on biological limits because limits are for other people. People who are weaker, older, or inexperienced. Him? He used to play sports, used to hit the gym, used to win a few strength challenges, so clearly his body is still in peak condition, even if the last time was more than a decade ago. He compares himself to people who got hurt and reaches a quick conclusion. They were unlucky, they were bad at it, they didn't know their limits. The problem is, the body doesn't join that argument. It doesn't care who he thinks he is. When the heart is overloaded, when reflexes slow down, when endurance runs out, the body doesn't negotiate with ego. It doesn't say, just this once. It simply stops. Story 6, just a bet. It starts harmlessly, the most classic American disaster setup imaginable. Inside a bar, after a few beers, when the brain has already clocked out but ego orders another round. Someone blurts out a line like, "You won't do it." And just like that, the game officially begins. No one plans to do anything dangerous. At least not at first. No one wants to lose, and losing here isn't about money, it's about pride. Ego can't handle that. And with an audience around, ego gets stronger. Laughter, cheering, phones coming out to record turn a dumb idea into a legendary moment. Everyone thinks they'll stop at the perfect time, right before things go too far. But ego doesn't know how to stop. It only knows how to push forward until it wins, or breaks. And in that deciding moment, no one says, "All right, that's enough." There's only laughter fading out, expressions changing, and a heavy silence when everyone realizes the joke went way farther than anyone imagined. Story 7, just trying it once. He's never done this before. No training, no practice, no real-world experience beyond skimming a few articles and watching a couple of clips. But in his head, that's not a problem, because he believes he's smart enough. The kind of smart that can skip other people's experience without paying the tuition. Advice from people around him goes in one ear and out the other. Someone who's done this for 10 years is labeled overly cautious. Someone warning about risks is dismissed as scared. He tells himself they failed because they're not like him. He just needs to do it once, clean, quick, and efficient, to prove all those rules are overblown. He calls it just trying it. No long-term commitment, no plan to make it a habit. One time only, just to see what it feels like. The problem is, some things don't allow experiments. There's no draft, no second attempt, no undo button. And the moment he realizes that is the same moment everything has already been decided. Story 8, I'm different. He's absolutely convinced he's the exception. Not the mild, cautious kind of confidence, but a rock-solid belief that all those accident stories only happened to other people. Those people died because they were stupid, reckless, or uninformed. Him? Different. He's smarter, more aware, and most importantly, he knows what he's doing. At least he thinks he does. Every time he hears about an accident, he doesn't shudder. He analyzes. Ah, that's where they messed up. If I were doing it, I'd avoid that. They were careless, not me. That exact mindset pushes him one step further, then another. Because if he's the exception, then those limits probably don't apply to him. The problem is, reality doesn't keep a VIP list for egos. Physics, biology, and probability don't care who's smart, who's special, or who thinks they're different. They just operate the way they always have. And the moment he realizes he was never the exception is the moment there's no chance left to fix it. Story 9. Don't worry, I've got it under control. To him, every warning sounds like an exaggeration meant to scare inexperienced people. It sounds bad, but it's not that bad, he says, laughing as he keeps going. In his mind, risk is something you can manage with confidence, and he loves that feeling. The feeling of holding the wheel, controlling everything like the main character in a movie. He believes staying calm is all it takes. Accidents only happen to people who panic, fumble, and lack nerve. Him? He's used to pressure, used to handling situations, used to that thrill of danger with control. At least, that's what he tells himself. Then the moment arrives. No drama, no warning, just a few short seconds. A tiny miscalculation, a half-beat slow reaction, something outside the script. And in those exact seconds, control slips out of his hands. Losing control is brief, but the consequences stick around forever. Ego once said, "I've got this under control." Reality replies with a very short answer, "No." Story 10, fake experience. He's not a rookie. Quite the opposite. He's done this dangerous task so many times that he can do it while making small talk, half working, half deciding what to eat for dinner. That repetition creates what he calls experience, and that experience gives him something even more dangerous than risk: comfort. Experience makes him careless. Steps that used to matter get skipped because it's always like this. Safety warnings fade into background noise. The brain hands the job over to habit, and habit moves fast, clean, and without thinking. He doesn't see himself as reckless, he sees himself as efficient. The problem is, habit doesn't replace caution. It only pretends to. And danger doesn't care how many times you got it right before. It only needs one time when you do everything on autopilot. The most familiar run, the moment he's least alert, becomes the moment there's no room left to fix anything. Experience saved him many times, but this time, it turns its back without hesitation. Story 11, proving toughness. Everything starts once there are enough people standing around. A group of friends, a half-joking idea, and a challenge tossed out like a spark. No one actually wants to do it, but no one wants to be the first to say nah. Because in that group, saying no comes with a label, weak, and nobody wants to take that label home. Ego goes to work immediately. It whispers that this isn't about danger, it's about guts. Everyone looks at each other, everyone laughs, everyone waits for someone else to back out first. No one does. Reason tries to speak up very quietly and very briefly before getting drowned out by laughter and encouragement. The challenge gets done not because it needs to be, but because no one is willing to lose face. And when things go past the point of control, there's no cheering crowd anymore, just a silence that arrives fast and cold. The irony is, this story doesn't need a winner. From the very beginning, it was a game where having one loser was enough. Story 12. Honor is cheaper than a life. He doesn't think he's gambling with his life. In his head, this is just an awkward social moment. A few looks, a few half-joking laughs, and one very clear feeling. If he backs out now, people will look down on him. To him, that feels scarier than danger. The decision gets made fast. Not after weighing risks, but after weighing other people's eyes. Ego speaks up loud and clear. Better to do something reckless than be labeled a coward. So he steps forward, not to prove anything heroic, just to avoid losing face. Everything happens faster than he expects. When it goes wrong, the laughter disappears, the cheering stops, and all that's left is the heavy silence of people realizing they've just witnessed a decision no one can undo. Honor can be lost and earned back. The price he paid for that one moment of not being looked down on doesn't come with an undo button. Nobody wins this story, only ego gets to finish its last sentence. Story 13, when friends become an audience. Everything shifts the moment someone pulls out a phone. No announcement needed. Everyone understands. This moment just turned into content. One person starts recording, a few others laugh loudly, voices chime in with "do it, don't be shy, it's fine." The atmosphere suddenly feels more like a stage than real life. No one stops it, not because no one sees the danger, but because no one wants to be the one who ruins the fun. The person filming thinks they're just capturing the moment. The people cheering think they're not actually doing anything. Responsibility gets passed around until it belongs to no one. The more eyes on him, the bigger his ego grows. Every laugh feels like a small push forward. Backing out now would mean disappointing everyone. And ego hates disappointing an audience. Then the line gets crossed. The camera keeps rolling, but the cheers vanish. The crowd goes quiet fast, realizing there are moments when the phone should have been put down much earlier. Story 14, proving you're right. He was warned. Not vaguely, not indirectly, but plainly. Someone told him to be careful. Someone else said this thing goes wrong very easily. He heard all of it. And then he did ego's favorite move, ignored it. Not because he didn't understand. Actually, he understood perfectly. But stopping now would mean admitting those people were right. And that would mean he was wrong. Ego can't survive that storyline. It would rather take the risk than bow its head, so he keeps going. Not exactly because he believes it's safe, but because he wants to prove he's right. Every next step stops being an action and becomes a statement. A silent way of saying, I know what I'm doing. The problem is, reality doesn't care whether you're right or wrong. It doesn't argue, it doesn't explain, it doesn't give you a chance to fix your logic. When consequences arrive, they end the debate quickly and cleanly, and by then, who was right no longer matters at all. Story 15, Trusting Luck. He always has a very convenient explanation for every close call in the past. Just bad luck, but I was fine. In his mind, surviving again and again isn't a warning, it's proof of skill. Luck and ability slowly blur together until he can't tell which is which anymore. Every time things almost spiral out of control, he just laughs it off. See? Still fine. If it were actually dangerous, I would have been hit a long time ago. He uses past escapes as permission to push further, take bigger risks, and be less careful. Ego loves this kind of logic because it turns danger into a game of chance, one he's convinced he always wins. The problem is, luck isn't a skill. It doesn't learn, it doesn't improve, and it definitely doesn't owe you loyalty. It just shows up a few times, then leaves without notice. The moment luck walks away, he finally realizes he was never better. He was just spared. And this time, he isn't. Story 16. One last time. Just this once, then I'm done. He says it with confidence, like he's signing a serious contract with himself. One more time. One final round to wrap things up cleanly. After this, he promises he'll stop playing with risk. Ego loves this kind of promise because it lets everything continue without feeling wrong. In his head, this time is no different from all the others. Everything feels familiar. Every move already practiced. The warnings are postponed to the future, where after this, we'll take care of everything. Right now is fine, just one more time. The problem is, life doesn't recognize the idea of a last time the way humans do. There's no special signal saying this will be the last one in the literal sense. Everything looks normal until it isn't. He keeps his promise. He really does it just one more time. It's just that afterward, he doesn't get the chance to quit anymore. Story 17, Challenging Nature. He believes humans stand above nature, not in an obvious loud way, but in that very everyday confidence kind of way. He has experience, good gear, and preparation. In his head, nature is just the backdrop. Wind can be predicted. Terrain can be read at a glance. Animals will probably avoid humans anyway, like people always say. He judges everything using human logic. The weather looks fine. The terrain doesn't seem that hard. That animal can't be that aggressive. Accident stories all get filed into the same category. Exaggerations meant to scare people without nerve. Ego is very satisfied with this reasoning. The problem is, nature doesn't use human logic. It doesn't read plans, doesn't care how confident you feel, and definitely doesn't participate in bets. Animals don't know you're just doing it real quick. Weather doesn't know you think you've got it under control. Nature doesn't need to win or lose. It only needs to act according to what it is. And when a human steps wrong, nature doesn't strike back. It simply doesn't move aside. Story 18, The Feeling of Being Immortal. He's cheated death more than once. Not the funny jump scare kind, but the kind of moments close enough to make his heart beat a little faster than usual. And every time, things turned out fine. Over time, that quietly turned into a very dangerous belief in his head. Maybe he's got luck on his side. Each safe return adds another layer of confidence. Not because he's better, but because he believes he knows exactly when to stop. The people who got hurt. Just unlucky. Not sharp enough. Ego loves this story because it turns luck into personal skill. The line of safety gets pushed farther back with every still fine. What once made him hesitate now feels familiar. Serious warnings get lumped into the just trying to scare you category. He doesn't realize that he isn't immortal. It just hasn't been his turn yet. The problem is, every streak of luck has an ending. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't care how many times you got away with it. And when luck finally leaves, the illusion of immortality disappears with it. Story 19. Viral first, safety later. Everything starts with a very modern thought. This would get crazy views if I post it. Yeah, it's a little dangerous, but not as dangerous as missing out on a moment that could go viral. In his head, risk is something to worry about later. Right now, what matters is the camera angle, the lighting, and who's hitting the record button. The moment the camera turns on, common sense starts powering down. Questions like, is this safe, get shoved aside to make room for does this look cool? Ego absolutely loves this feeling. The attention, the imaginary flood of comments and likes already lining up in his mind. He tells himself everyone else does this and they're fine. Just do it fast, clean, no mistakes. But social media doesn't care whether you're safe or not. It only cares whether there's content. And when things go past the point of control, the camera keeps rolling. The views might still come, but common sense doesn't make it back in time. Story 20, the last selfie. He just wants a good photo. Nothing fancy, just the right angle, decent lighting, and a background impressive enough to make people stop scrolling. In his head, this is the perfect moment, the kind of shot that makes everyone think, wow, that place is insane. He takes one small step closer for a better angle. Just a little. No one pushes him, no one rushes him. He's just standing a bit closer so the frame feels complete. Yeah, it's dangerous, but he's already here. It should be fine. Ego whispers that millions of people take photos like this and walk away just fine. He raises the phone, adjusts the angle, holds his breath for a few seconds. The world shrinks down to the frame in front of him. Everything else, the height, the distance, the balance, gets pushed out of his mind. The problem is, some photos don't allow retakes. One wrong step is enough. There's no second frame, no second try. Just one perfect picture, and the story ends right after. Story 21. It'll probably be fine. He knows this is dangerous. Not vaguely, clearly. He's seen the warnings, heard other people mention it, even briefly imagined a few worst-case scenarios. But all of that gets shut down by one very convenient sentence. It'll probably be fine. In his head, danger is usually exaggerated. People overstate things to protect themselves, to avoid trouble. If it were really that serious, more people would have gotten hurt by now. And him? He's still standing here, breathing normally. Everything looks pretty okay. Ego loves this fake sense of calm. He keeps going, not because he believes it's completely safe, but because he believes the risk won't choose him. Just a little recklessness, a little carelessness, but still within what he considers acceptable, at least by his own judgment. The problem is, reality doesn't need your approval. It doesn't care whether you think the danger is big or small. When it happens, it doesn't ask. It just happens. And at that point, it'll probably be fine doesn't help at all anymore. Story 22. Ignoring Plan B. Everything has been carefully calculated, at least in his head. Step by step, every tiny detail, every possibility imagined. He has Plan A, and Plan A looks perfect. So perfect that he doesn't see the need for anything else. After all, when everything is prepared this well, how could it possibly go wrong? Plan B is seen as pessimistic, something for the insecure. He believes that if he follows Plan A exactly, there's no room for error. Ego loves this kind of thinking because it turns preparation into absolute confidence. No backup needed, because backups only make you hesitate. The problem is, the real world doesn't read your plans. It doesn't care how meticulously you've prepared. One small element out of place, and everything starts to slip off track. Mistakes don't need an invitation. They show up regardless. And when they do, the absence of Plan B makes him realize that even the most perfect plan can fail very fast. Story 23. Thinking he's faster. He's always confident his reflexes are quick enough to dodge any risk. As long as I lift my hand or move my foot in time, I'm good, he says, laughing, confidence spilling out of every word. And before this, it kind of worked. He dodged falling objects, avoided slips, even escaped situations that looked sketchy on paper. Ego kept getting fed, convincing him he was basically a real-life superhero, controlling chaos with speed and sharp instincts. But physics doesn't care about belief or personal pride. Falling objects, inertia, impact speed, they all follow their own rules and don't wait for human reflexes to catch up. Just once, in a tiny moment, he realizes he's not faster than the world. Reflexes are just a small number in nature's equation, nowhere near enough to save him from the outcome. Ego once thought it was unbeatable. Reality delivers the cold answer. Physics always wins, and humans pay the price. Story 24. Trusting the gear. He's always convinced technology will save him. A safety harness, a drone, or some super smart measuring app. He treats them all like magic tools. This gear will never fail, he tells himself, waving his hand confidently, so sure that even people around him feel impressed. His ego grows with every little risk the equipment helps him avoid, making him feel smarter than the world itself. But gear has limits. Batteries die, sensors misread, tiny unexpected malfunctions happen. All possible. And when that flaw shows up, the consequences aren't just a slip or a light bump. One small error, 1 minute of carelessness, and he realizes he's entirely dependent on something he thought was invincible. Ego thinks he's safe. Reality reminds him, technology is just a tool, not a life, and its limits are always there. Story 25. Playing with probability. He understands that risk exists, but with ego in full swing, every number becomes simple. Probability is just a game, he tells himself, smirking at the warnings. He believes he's lucky enough, skilled enough, tough enough to beat every calculation. Every time he gambles, he underestimates the chance of failure, convinced the bad odds will never hit him. People around watch like it's a dark comedy, a man dancing on the edge of danger, laughing at risk like it's a video game. And then, as if probability was waiting for a single perfect moment, it strikes. No warning, no reminder. He realizes that just one mistimed outcome can change everything. Ego may be strong, but probability, cold, merciless, always finds a way to remind humans of their limits. Story 26. The perfect plan. He prides himself on his detailed plan. Every step, every minute, every move mapped out like a roadmap to success. On paper, everything is flawless, not a single error. But there's one critical detail he overlooks. Humans, himself included. Ego makes him forget that absolute confidence doesn't equal absolute control. He believes that if he follows the plan, everything will be fine. All risks, all variables get ignored because he has a perfect plan. Then a tiny mistake appears. Completely unexpected. One misstep, a delayed reaction, a seemingly harmless detail is enough to ruin all his achievements. The more confident ego becomes, the faster disaster strikes, reminding him that perfect plans exist only in imagination, while reality is always far harsher. Story 27. Ignoring everyone else. Every warning turns into background noise in his ears. Family, friends, even strangers passing by can't slow him down. Each reminder, each caution only feeds his ego. Whatever they say, I know better. His ego treats all advice as an insult, a challenge to overcome to prove himself. He smirks at warnings. I've done this hundreds of times, what's the worry? He even mocks those who care. They've never tried it, so they don't get it. And when things go too far, the accident happens. No one forces him, no one steps in. He walks the path he chose, letting ego drive, letting confidence lead. The moment everything collapses, he realizes that listening to others isn't weakness. It's a chance to survive. Ego never admits defeat, but the body sometimes doesn't forgive. Story 28. Believing he controls everything. He's calm, confident, everything seemingly going according to plan. Every move, every decision carefully considered. From the outside, it looks perfect, like he's steering everything with invisible hands. Ego swells, grinning proudly. Everything's under my control. But life never sticks to the plan forever. One tiny detail, one unforeseen factor, a fraction of a second delay, and everything starts to wobble. He still doesn't realize it, still believes he's in charge. His huge ego convinces him that a small mistake can't ruin the whole picture. Then the moment comes. No warning, no drama, just a few brief seconds. Control slips completely from his hands, and everything he thought he had mastered turns to chaos. Ego never admits defeat, but reality doesn't care. Story 29. One small mistake. Everyone thinks it's just a small mistake, a trivial slip. No one realizes that a seemingly harmless detail can trigger an uncontrollable chain reaction. He smirks, telling himself, just a little thing, no big deal. Ego brims with pride at handling the situation, confidence growing by the second. But the system doesn't need a big error. One misaligned gear, one wrong number, one slow move. Any of it is enough to ruin the whole mechanism. No warning sirens, no flashing lights, everything progresses silently. And when the consequences arrive, no one can fix it or turn back. He stands there, watching chaos spread, realizing his ego deceived him. One small mistake was all it took to prove. In the real world, you don't need massive errors. Just one mistake at the wrong time is enough. Story 30, the price to pay. Looking back, there's no single stupid moment to blame. Every reckless decision, every "I got this," contributes to the outcome. Ego doesn't appear in a flash. It accumulates, quietly growing with each seemingly harmless action. He realizes his ego turned everything into danger, without him noticing. The successive actions play like a wordless symphony, each note leading to an unavoidable finale. No magic, no warning, just silent yet decisive consequences. When the truth hits, no one can undo it or turn back time. All that remains is a stunned reflection on one's own chain of actions, realizing the price of arrogance is never small. Ego wins, and the lesson is painful but clear. Arrogance, accumulated through every decision, exacts its merciless toll. Story 31. Ego signs, the contract, reality collects. A man stands before a contract he never realized he signed. Every reckless choice, every "I got this" moment, every challenge, playful bet, feeling of invincibility, risky selfie, all are recorded, stamped invisibly by his ego. Ego is the lawyer, reality is the creditor, and the contract is enforced quietly without mercy. He looks around and sees himself in each story. Small habits, carelessness, overconfidence, ignored warnings, all clauses already signed. He forces a laugh, realizing that all along he thought he was in control, but in reality he was just contributing to a contract his ego drafted. Outro. This story doesn't moralize, judge, or offer a comforting lesson. It leaves one question creeping into the listener's mind. Am I signing a contract with my ego without even knowing it? And this question waits for no answer. When ego signs for you, reality collects. No warning, no negotiation, no compromise. By the time you realize it, it's too late. The story ends, but the haunting remains, reminding you that arrogance can be a contract you never wanted to sign. Yet you did, long ago, unknowingly.